Alright, I'm going to show you how to use the free Easy Ballistics plugin to fire cannonballs. Alright, make sure you got the plugin enabled and let's get started. Alright, first off, create a new folder, and here we'll be creating the new components we'll be using for our cannons. Alright, what we're going to do is create two blueprints. One of them will be from eBay Bullet. That'll be our cannonball. And the other one will come from EB Barrel. That will be our cannon barrel. Alright, after that we're going to create the main cannon actor itself. Alright, open up. Add a static mesh. I'll just use a generic cube. And then we'll add in our new cannon barrel. Now let's set up the basic shooting function. Alright, start off with a flip-flop node. And into slot A, we'll add shoot. And into slot B, we'll add charge. Make sure to enable trigger, and then move over to the barrel settings. There are two things that will need to be changed. First, over down to the fire mode, change it to manual. And then secondly, add the cannonball to our ammo list. With that, we should be able to get some basic shots fired. So head over to the cannonball and enable debug trails. Alright, now we're going to create a very basic interface system to help things get along. Name the function interact or interaction. Open up the project settings and head down to the engine input. Open up and add a new action mapping, call it interaction, and select the E key. With that, our third-person character should now have access to input action, interaction. So add that in. And get overlapping actors. Class filter for actors. And get a for each loop. From there, get a does implement interface and select our new interface. Add a branch node. Then, if the object can interact, do the interaction. Alright, now compile and save all our necessary blueprints. Head over to the cannon. add our new interface, and then add in the new interaction event. Now, in order for our interaction to work, we still need to give our cannon a collider. So add in a box collision, and we'll make it super large so we can ensure that we're always in the box. Alright, we should be able to drag our cannon into the level and fire some shots. The cube I'm using is a little bigger than I expected. I think I'll resize it. Let's just press play for now. Yeah, we're not seeing anything because the cannonball is getting shot inside the cube. I definitely should have resized that. Yep, I'm going to drag out the cannon barrel a little. And then I'm also comparing it to the box collider instead of the static mesh. That way we can resize the static mesh without affecting the barrel. Alright, just making sure everything else is also good. And we're still not getting shots because our barrel is probably underground. It's the little things that always get you. And now, as you can see, you'll see a laser getting fired every time you press the E key twice. And that is because you have to press it once to shoot, and then the second time to reload before shooting again. And of course, you can also add additional conditions such as carrying ammo over to make the interaction more complex. Alright, now that we know that shots are getting fired, let's move on to the rest of what we need. Add a shots fired event. Into that we play a sound at location and spawn system at location. Now we can add the audio and visuals for our shots getting fired. And for that we're going to head over to the starter content, which has some decent stuff for us to use. Add the explosion sound cue over to our play sound at location. And then our particle explosion. Well, I forgot that the UE4 particle system requires a different spawner. Alright, now drag down the cannon barrel and get its world location. Now onto the cannonball itself. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is override gravity and change the value to 20k. There's also a mass option further down which we can also change, but I found its effect to be a little too strong and sometimes unexpected in what it does. Alright, next thing we're going to change is the muzzle velocity. Since the cannonball is definitely not going to fly as fast as a bullet, we're going to cut the max velocity in half and the minimum down to 40k. and also zero out the ricochet probability. Alright, add an event on impact. Then from there, we'll spawn a decal. That's the mark your cannonball will leave on the object hit. Alright, grab the component we're going to attach to, location into location, and then convert the incoming velocity into a x vector for our rotation. Sadly, I don't think the starter content comes with decals, so we'll have to skip on adding a decal for our cannon hit. Alright, the second thing we're going to add to this is our impact effect. I'm going to go over and grab our smoke. I think this one will do. And from here, we'll spawn a new actor, which we'll use to handle the explosion hit and damage. We're going to call this new actor Cannon Impact Hit. We're going to select that as our actor to spawn, and then open it up. Now we're going to add two components to our impact hit. One of them is going to be a spear collider, and the other one a radial force. I'm going to make the spear collider 600 and the radial force a little bigger at 800. Something we're going to change is our force fall off over from constant to linear. This will make the force of the explosion weaker as the player gets further away from the center. Next, change the impulse strength to 2k and set the impulse velocity change option to true. If you leave it on, it will affect things differently depending on their mass, which is more realistic but also more time consuming as you will have to fine tune the mass values of each object. Alright, pull out from the event begin play and insert a sequence node. And into pin 1, we're going to add a for each loop. Get overlapping actors with the spear. And for the class filter, we're going to filter out for the third person character. And then to each character in the explosion, we're going to apply damage. Set the damage applied to 100. And then you can select a damage type class. I have a pretty big list here from all the other plugins I have installed, but you can choose whatever you're using. And then we're going to make the hit characters go ragdoll. You can actually go pretty elaborate with this, but we're going to keep it simple and generic for the sake of the tutorial. Alright, we're going to cast to the third person character. We're going to get the character mesh. We're going to set simulate physics. And then set collision profile name, and the collision profile we'll use is ragdoll. And then back in the for each loop, in the completed pan, we'll add a destroy component and destroy the spear. And we're also going to reparent the radial force onto the scene root instead of the sphere. And then we're going to drag down the radial force. And into the second sequence pin, we'll add a fire impulse. And then finally, we'll destroy the actor. Now, before we move on to our final playtest, you see Get Overlapping Actors has a strange little quirk. It will not work on event begin play unless something moves in or out of the collision. So what we're going to do is add a set relative location node, and use that to move our sphere plus or minus 1. I guess you just gotta shake our blueprint up a little to wake it up. And with that, you can now press play and watch yourself get blasted off of cannon fire. And of course, now that you have one cannon set up, you can set up as many as you want. Have fun!